have to be really careful how I'm sitting because the way the sun is just coming in my window. See that? It's like between the shade and the, yeah. So I'm going to try and sit back a little bit. I hope it's not too distracting. Let's get started with this haul. Lately I've been trying to be really a little bit more selective about the products that I'm buying. I want to make sure that they're things that I love and not just like get caught up in the hype and say, oh, I gotta have every palette that's going to be released. Because frankly, these days that is unachievable. There's just too much. The market is so saturated with all kinds of palettes, you know, colorful palettes, neutral palettes. It's just almost too much. And I've almost become like numb to it. Like I look at things very critically and I'm like, nope, don't need that. Nope, don't need that. But a couple things have come up that I was a little excited about. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. So that's what this haul is all about. It's just a couple of new eyeshadow palettes I picked up. Let's see, a new eyeliner, some brushes, a concealer. Oh, and a single. Who am I? I almost never buy a single eyeshadow. But because that's such a remarkable thing, that's what I decided to wear for this video today. Let's start off with just a little teeny tiny bit of skincare that I picked up. And this was just something I was picking up, a new CeraVe cleanser, the creamy cleanser that I really love. And I noticed they now have a hydrating micellar water. And I thought, wow, that looks awesome. Since I love the cleanser so much and I love other products from this brand, I thought I would give it a try. And to be very honest, I've just opened it up today. Like, I used it a teeny tiny bit to actually to take off a foundation fail and get started all over for filming this video because I was not having a good foundation day today. Does that ever happen to you? Like where you know, a tried and true foundation and you put it on and it's like, what the heck? It's in every single pore. It's making me look dry and flaky. I just had to actually end up washing my face and starting over. Okay, so that's just a little tiny bit of skincare I picked up, and I don't use a ton of micellar water, but I do want to have it on my makeup table available to me should I need it. So I always try and keep a little bit of that around. Some of these things I highlighted in an individual video, all the stuff from ColourPop. I did a separate like ColourPop haul, but I am going to just quickly talk about them in this video in case you missed that one. And of course, I'll link it up here in case you want to see it in more depth and detail. So one of the things I picked up in the ColourPop haul was a whole bunch of brushes. And I'm not going to go over all of them because I go over them in a little bit more detail in that video. But I have to say, I really like the quality of these brushes for the price. I think, I think they work great. I'm not a brush snob. I'm not someone who has these real expensive brushes in my collection. I use a lot of e.l.f. brushes, a lot of Real Techniques, Sonia Kashuk, like that's kind of my comfort zone. For brushes, I'd rather put my money into other makeup products. So if you are looking for some really affordable brushes that do a great job, check them out. I was pretty impressed. The next thing I picked up was their Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Acid Creamy Concealer. And what shade do I have? I'll include it in the link below. I bought this thinking, oh, it has hyaluronic acid in it. It'll be very hydrating. Maybe it'll plump up those crinkly bits under my eyes. And it is pretty drying, in my opinion, for someone of my vintage. I don't think it does a great job plumping up those lines. I think it actually dries out my under eyes a little bit more. So if you have a pretty smooth under eye situation, you might like it. The texture of it is nice, but I'm very, very, very particular about what I put under my eyes. And so I don't love it. The color match is great. Today I used it in a slightly different way because, as you know, as I mentioned earlier, I was having a hideous foundation day. So I went very minimal and I used this like around my nose and a little bit on my chin just to kind of blur out some of those major imperfections I have on my skin. And then I blended that out and I used this powder foundation that I've been using quite a bit, the Sephora Micro Smooth Powder Foundation. I've been happy with this. I like a pressed or a baked powder foundation. I find it's less messy than those loose powder foundations. And I think powder foundation right now is what looks best on my skin. And I'm sure you're thinking like, what the heck? Who wears a powder foundation when you're over the age of 50, when your skin is kind of dry? But honestly, I'm finding that it doesn't settle into my fine lines and wrinkles. I don't feel like it emphasizes texture on my face, and I'm all about that. Beefing up my skincare so I don't have much coverage that I need to do, and just using as little foundation as I can get away with. That is my mantra right now. Okay, before we move on to the newer stuff that you haven't seen before, the other thing from ColourPop is this palette, the Flutterby palette, which again is in that video, and it is just a stunner. A really pretty mauvey neutral palette that I quite like. So you can check that out in this video up here. Let's move on to the newer stuff that I haven't talked about. What should I talk about first? Let's talk about the single shadow. So I picked up this single shadow from Marc Jacobs. It is their exclamation point mega gel powder eyeshadow. So what it says here is it's a super size, so they say it's bigger than a regular single shadow. 12 hours of long wear, featuring gel-coated pigments, designated to minimize fallout and provide high-impact crease-resistant color. That's a whole lot of marketing in there, but it's a very nice eyeshadow. The shade that I picked up is called Moment and it's a matte smoky lavender. So because I don't purchase that many singles, I decided to feature it in today's look. So this is what I'm wearing on my eyes. But to do this look today, I didn't just do like a light all over the lid. Well, yeah, I kind of did. But in addition to that, I'm also using a new eyeliner from Milani. It's called the Stay Put Waterproof Eyeliner. Here's the package. It says all day wear, transfer resistant, easy to blend. So it is just your typical pencil eyeliner. But I always like to see, what the drugstore has to offer, because sometimes they have some real gems, some hidden gems in there. And I think this is a relatively new product, but I'm not entirely sure. I saw it mentioned on like the best eyeliner list, probably Allure. So I thought I would give it a go. It is definitely has a really beautiful, like very soft, creamy texture. And I used it to line like the very outer third to a half of my lid. And then I just took this little brush here and just smudged it out. I did it much more carefully than this, but I want to show you. It does have a nice smudge blendability factor to it. So you have a little playtime before it actually sets. So I did put that on first before I put my shadow on, because I wanted to use the shadow to kind of set the liner a little bit, because I have very heavily hooded eyes, and even those ones that say they're transfer resistant do tend to transfer. So that's just a fact of life for me. And I just wanted to be able to put it on the outer part of my lid and make that shadow look a little bit deeper and darker along the outside edge. So I'm using it for the first time today. I can't really comment on all the claims that it makes on the package, but I did like how soft it was. It went on very softly, and it has nice blendability. It looks like most of the local stores are only carrying the black, but if you go on the Milani website, it actually comes in 5 different shades, which is pretty exciting. It comes in, of course, black. It comes in like a slate gray, which is pretty dark. It's like virtually black, but just a tiny bit softer. A dark espresso brown, a plum, and a sapphire. That's pretty exciting. So if you want to give this a go and want to try some of those colors, I think you're going to have to order it off of the Milani website. Let's move on to a couple of other palettes that I picked up. So it's no surprise that I love the Natasha Denona mini palettes. I think they are a great value for a high-end brand. I have a couple of these. This is what's handy right here while I'm filming. I have the mini Lila palette, but the new one I have is the mini Glam palette. I thought this was very pretty and very wearable. Someone was saying that it was a cool tone palette, and I would say it's almost a cool tone palette. So this shade here in the end, I feel like is very bronzy, but not too bronzy that you can't wear it. And the rest of the shades I think are very pretty. I think what I like about some of these smaller palettes is they have a more edited color story, and they're not like all over the place. And I've really been gravitating to these smaller kind of palettes that have a limited number of shadows as opposed to these mega palettes that have, you know, 12 or 13 shadows in them, which I just feel like sometimes there's a lot of duplication in those. The shades aren't always all unique, and after a while I feel like I've seen some of that before. Not that this is anything revolutionary, it isn't. It's just what I've been gravitating towards lately, which is a lot of neutral tone eyeshadows, and I find that's what I enjoy wearing the most, so that's what I'm just looking to purchase the most. And if I can find them with a slightly cooler tone, so what you want to hear behind that is nothing orange in there, okay? Like, there's so few people on this earth that can wear orange eyeshadow. I don't know why they keep showing up in every single palette. I just love these little mini palettes because they are just so convenient, and there's certainly enough product in there for someone like me who owns a lot of makeup. So the next one I want to talk about is from Fenty Beauty. They released a bunch of what I would consider like mini palettes. They're calling them Snap Shadows Mix and Match Eyeshadow Palettes. So there are 9 different color stories, and frankly I could have probably bought 4, but I was like, okay, let's just keep this to 2. And I'm kind of glad I did that, because sometimes I do go a little overboard and then it's just like, what are you thinking? So they are these little smaller palettes. There's 6 eyeshadows in there. They're calling them snap palettes because you can put 2 of them together and snap them together. And so then you have one side with one color story and one side with another color story. And it's still a very nice small package for your makeup bag if you don't want a lot in your makeup bag. And they just pull apart pretty easily. So they did have a basic neutral one, which really kind of caught my eye, but I was worried without being able to dip my fingers in it, it might be too warm. Especially when there's their number 2 palette, they're calling a cool neutrals palette. So I did pick up the number 2 palette. I'm having trouble with the natural daylight that's coming in, so I apologize for some of the color fluctuations. So this has 6 colors in it, and it is, let's see, looks like there's 2 mattes and the rest are shimmery. So let's go ahead and just quickly swatch the 2 mattes. I've worn this a couple times. You know, those perform beautifully. And let's go ahead and swatch these other ones real quick. So what I thought was interesting about this is that pop of purple. I just thought that was super interesting. And I like a little pop of purple when I'm doing an eye look. And I use it a lot of different ways. Certainly under the lash line is a classic way to do it, especially if you are, don't want to wear a ton of color, or if you have a huge lid that's showing and you don't want to put all that purple on. But I love putting it on the mobile part of my lid because I have the hooded eyes. And this shade here is a great like one shadow look. It's awesome. Most of the time I choose this to put in my crease as like a transition to start it off, and then I deepen it with this darker brown, which is a really nice cool tone brown. I'm liking this a lot. So the other one I picked up was number 6, and it's called Smoky. This also has 2 mattes, and the rest are shimmery, and one is pretty glittery. So this black one shade here does have a little bit of glitter sprinkled into it, but it doesn't really show so much on the eye. The two browns are definitely the mattes. These are a little shimmery, and this is a little bit glittery. So let's go ahead, and I'm just gonna swatch across the rows. That's the top row, and that's the bottom row. Can you see that glitter one's blended out on the back of my hand? So I really liked the fact that they had some very wearable options in this collection, because a lot of times their palettes are very trendy and can be a little tricky to wear. So are there any palettes that you've been interested in this spring that have kind of come up? There is one more that I have my eyeball on, and it's the new one from Too Faced. It's the Born This Way, the Natural Nudes eyeshadow palette. It looks beautiful, and like I said, I'm really way into these neutrals, but I do want to see a few reviews of this one before I make the dive there. So I publish videos every Saturday morning, and I'll include a link to last week's video right up here, and I'll let the YouTube algorithm personally handpick a video for you based on videos that you like, and post that right there. Thank you so much, and I will see you real soon.